I'm Ashton Addison from BlockWest Capital for InvestmentPitch Media and the Crypto Coin Show. And today on Blockchain Interviews, we have Sergey Gorbunov, the co-founder of Axelar. Sergey, welcome to the show, and thank you for taking the time to come on.
Thanks for inviting me. Great to be here.
You're very welcome. I'm excited to dive into Axelar as a protocol really focused on cross-communication. I think it's going to be necessary for the blockchain space to evolve into the next level. I would love for you to kick it off by just giving an overview of Axelar and some of the solutions that you're providing into the space, and then we can dive into the details.
Yeah, for sure. So Axelar is a universal interoperability protocol and infrastructure that allows you to connect distinct blockchain ecosystems, applications, and users, right? And on the high level, the problem that we're solving is that today we live in a world of many different distinct chains that are being developed, each one of them optimizing for unique technical characteristics or target specific markets and use cases, right? But what's lacking in the space are good, robust interoperability solutions and protocols. And that's what we're focused on at the Axelar by building this infrastructure to bridge all these different ecosystems.
Definitely. And yeah, it's something that needs to be done. I'm sure it will be done and your team's working on it, but there also are other projects that have been working on it because it's an obvious friction in the market where there's all these isolated blockchains that can't really speak to each other, especially in the decentralized world. Trying to move assets across blockchains without having to go through centralized providers is something that has yet to be worked out perfectly. So, there are other projects that are working on this. Obviously, it's good to have multiple people working on towards the same goal. I'd love to know, what sort of makes Axelar different, provides a competitive advantage, and your approach to getting this cross communication in blockchains.
Yeah, so there are really, a few categories of different projects that you see in the market today. One are protocols that allow you to interoperate within certain ecosystems, right? So for instance, in the Polkadot ecosystem or within the Cosmos ecosystem, they have their own interoperability protocols, which work quite well, but they only work well for connecting blockchains or parachains that are native to those ecosystems, right? Mm-hmm. So at the very core, those protocols kind of understand specific consensus mechanisms that those blockchains are built on, and that's what allows them to tick and kind of interoperate within them. But external technologies and new protocols are needed to really connect blockchains that speak very different languages or have distinct software stacks, right? So for instance, Bitcoin and Ethereum and Avalanche and Cosmos blockchains, they all have very, very different software stacks and consensus mechanisms. And so you need different protocols to connect them. Mm-hmm. And so as a result, we've seen a few solutions being developed in the market, but a lot of them are very centralized today, right? So it's quite easy for you to go and build a centralized bridge with a few kind of a buddies to set up like a multi-sig account and transfer assets back and forth, but really doesn't solve the problem for the ecosystem, right? To really bridge a decentralized network with another decentralized network, like you need decentralized and trustless interoperability protocols. Mm-hmm. So, and that's a very hard technical problem, and that's what we're focusing on at the Axelar network, is really building a network that remains decentralized, where anybody can join and run the protocol. And at the core of it, our goal is to be able to plug in an arbitrary software stack, right? So no matter what the underlying consensus is of your blockchain, no matter what kind of technical decisions the platform builders have made, we should still be able to plug it in and connect them with other ecosystems. And so that's the approach that Axelar is taking by designing this protocol.
Definitely, and I like the approach, Sergey. And I think that you mentioned development and the development software stacks. I think that's super important. More than just understanding, trying to move, Bitcoin to Ethereum or moving assets across chains, is the development of all of these layer one protocols and the smart contracts that are on them and the dApps that are on them. How are those dApps going to be cross-compatible? How are you going to have Ethereum dApps working on a different blockchain? How are you going to have other blockchains that have different programming languages have their dApps compatible with Ethereum and vice versa? So maybe you could elaborate a little bit more on the cross-chain development and the focus that Axelar has on the development side for dApps.
Yeah, no, it's a great question. when we talk about interoperability, we have to realize that an entire set of protocols and solutions has to be built, right? We're not talking about just a protocol that allows you to deliver assets, like you said. But so what we have designed at the Axelar network is really kind of different sets of protocols, right? So some protocols are at the very bottom of the layer that is simply responsible for delivering messages and like finalizing transactions on one chain and so on and so forth. But then we're also thinking and working on a set of protocols that applications can integrate directly with, right? And so those are application level protocols that if you build your application on one blockchain, you'll be able to interact with those application level protocols to compose with other ecosystems, right? And a simple analogy you can think of is if you're building on Ethereum, you can easily interact with different ERC20 assets by issuing a few function calls, right? Mm-hmm. And so we're trying to create similar set of protocols and standards at the application level, where as an application builder, you can simply make calls to be able to interact with assets that are belonging to other ecosystems, or execute a call to perform kind of a smart contract functionality on a different chain, and so on and so forth. And so we need to build those unified application level protocols to really enable this composability of applications.
Definitely. And what do you think should be the specific focus on attracting developers to actually be using it? You know, is it just ease of use, or breadth of programming languages, more SDKs? You know, how are you really going to get developers interested?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think two things. Of course, you have to work on usability, right? So your tooling is quite important. You have to make sure that developers know how to use it, and so on and so forth. And so the approach that we've taken from day one was to really allow developers to build on any platform that they want, and use the languages and SDK and the tooling of those blockchain platforms, and be able to interact with our sort of gateway contracts that are deployed in the tooling and in the languages of that platform, right? So if you deployed a Solidity contract on Ethereum, you'll be able to interact with our protocols, which is just another set of contracts in the Solidity deployed on a similar platform. And so you already have the tooling, and you already understand how to communicate with those APIs. So that's one thing. But the second one is, once developers understand that kind of this interoperability and cross-chain support allows them to bring more liquidity and more users to the applications, then there's naturally a requirement for them to integrate in order to be competitive in the market, right? So if one of your competing DEXs is integrated with an interoperability stack and has a lot more liquidity, has a lot more reachability and distribution, then if you're building your own DEX, you have to do the same, right? You have to bring this liquidity. You have to be able to support as many assets as possible. And so there is naturally kind of a networking effect that starts kicking in after some initial integrations take place.
Definitely. And speaking of DEXs and liquidity, I'm curious, within Axelar, how focused is your team on the DeFi world? And that's really been one of the highest growing areas besides NFTs in the blockchain space in the last year. What is your team doing within DeFi?
Yeah, so our goal, as I mentioned, is to really empower these DeFi blockchain developers, right? So we're focused on the infrastructure. We're focused on building these protocols and the interconnected layer across different blockchain ecosystems. And we're working with different DeFi projects in order to give them this kind of cross-chain support, composability, and liquidity across different ecosystems. So super excited about the DeFi, and kind of would love to see it go even further as we enable this cross-chain support.
Definitely, me too. And as well, I saw within Axelar that there's also a native token that functions within the ecosystem. Maybe you can talk about the Axelar token. What are the main functionalities, and does it create a sustainable ecosystem for all the participants?
Yeah, it's a great question. So if you want to support any decentralized protocol that's permissionless, you have to have various Sybil resistance mechanisms, right? And so, you see in the proof of stake networks, you naturally have governance tokens that provide you this Sybil resistance mechanisms, allow people to kind of participate and pay transaction fees when they transact and use the protocol, and earn various kind of incentives for participating in the ecosystem, right? And so Axelar protocol itself is a decentralized network, and so naturally there is a governance token that will be behind it that will support the decentralized protocol, allow users to stake, to run validator nodes, and to pay transaction fees, and so on and so forth.
Mm-hmm. Definitely good to know. And there's so much in the development pipeline I know that you're working with. It's a big job to connect blockchains and have the right ecosystem for development, to have all this cross compatibility, especially with the rate that DeFi is growing at, and trying to keep up just to that and then surpassing that. It's a lot. Maybe you can talk about, with your team's goals in the next 6 months to a year, what are the sort of main functionalities that you're looking to drive into the market?
Yeah, great question. So currently we are in a testnet environment where we're testing the network protocol, kind of onboarding various ecosystem players like validators, folks that are building dashboards, wallets around the networks, and initial integrations. And kind of the roadmap for us over the next 6 months to a year is to make this protocol robust and safe and secure. So we have all kinds of audits that are scheduled on the network. We're performing more testing, adding new sets of functionalities, and then launch it to the market with initial integrations to support basic asset transfers in a decentralized way across autonomous ecosystems like we talked about.
Great. And maybe you can talk about way down the road when the main net's out, it's fully compatible, blockchains are speaking to each other in different languages. What do you see as the key factors to success in getting Axelar to that point of being the go-to cross communication protocol?
Yeah, I mean, I think my strong view is that to really enable a multi-chain and interoperability across ecosystems, it's not about a single protocol, right? There's all kinds of infrastructure that's missing in the ecosystem, like I said, from routing protocols to application level protocols to tooling that you need to really monitor different blockchains, to understand what is the state of different contracts, indexing around them, and so on and so forth. And so it's not a 1 year journey or a 2 year journey. I think we as an ecosystem are going to have to build all kinds of solutions, and Axelar is going to be contributing across the entire stack, from initial protocols to building tools to really make it simpler for developers to leverage this multi-chain ecosystem going forward. And for us, I think a success really looks like this. I think today we're still talking about all these different networks and different bridging technologies, but I think as an ecosystem, we have to shift the focus and attention a little bit and talk a little bit more about assets and applications, right? And that's what really we want. Just like we're doing a video call right now, our information is routed across all kinds of networks, and we don't talk about it, right? There is all kinds of hubs and routers that are delivering information from you to me at this point, and we have to get to a similar position in the blockchain ecosystem where users get to directly interact with the applications, no matter where they are, assuming they have strong security guarantees and they were deployed on robust networks. And so that's what we're working towards.
Definitely, and I'm looking forward to that as well, Sergey. And for the viewers that are looking to learn more about Axelar and the protocol and the community, what's the best way for them to get involved and learn more?
Yeah, I think the best starting point would be to visit our website, axelar.network. You'll be able to find various links to the Discord, where we have an active developer community. We'll have a test network that's running, so you can sign up to participate in that. And we have various social channels from Twitter to Telegram where you can come in, ask about the white paper, ask about some of the blogs or some of the other materials that we publish regularly.
Sounds great, Sergey. And I will also leave those links in the description box below. All the best with Axelar Network moving forward, and let's follow up in the near future.
Sounds great. Thanks, Ashton.